Hello， 大家好，我是 Leo， 这里是好2IT， 欢迎来到我的频道。对了，夏天来了，外面实在是太热，然后幸好在室内我们有我们的空调开着，空调是好，是很冷，但是好像这些Windows AC 实在是太吵了，所以今天这个 project 就是把它变得没那么吵，或者变安静。To do that, I'm gonna mount my PC on top of that AC unit. 对的，没错，我是想做一个 AC Cool PC。在做这个 project 里面呢，有几个目的，我希望可以达到的。第一个呢是把我的 AC 变得更加的安静，然后因为我呢会把我的机箱直接放到我的 AC 的前面，这样子可以阻挡很多嘈杂的声音 come out from the AC， 然后我应该还会放很多sound and damping material 在机箱里面，这样希望可以阻挡更多嘈杂的声音 come out from the AC。然后第二个，因为我直接把冷气吹到我的机箱里面，这样子希望我的电脑 performance 可以有所的提高。然后第三个，像你看到了。这些 Windows AC unit 实在是太 boring 太丑了，所以我会做一些 RGB lighting，make my PC 变得 make my AC 对 AC 变得更加酷，更加的有趣。现在就是时候给我这个 project 起一个名字，就是 AC PC。对的 ，You hear it first on How to IT。For this build, I will mainly working with this InWin 101 case. It comes with full-size tempered glass panel which look great with RGB component. I also like the way the sun can shine through the honeycomb panel on the top. Now down to the business. I remove all the components attached to the case, including the front panel I/O, PCIe brackets, the bottom foot, and to be able to put the AC inside the case, I need to make space by pushing the motherboard tray forward. To do that, I remove all the rivets that holding the side panels. Then I try to push it forward, but the back panel holding is on the way. So I'm ready for the first cut. Typical PC, the back I/O is flush on the back panel. This case is inside the case a little bit. That's why I need to cut these 3 metal banding. The case was super well built. The metal is super hard to cut. It takes me at least 20 minutes to cut each pieces. Because the metal is thick, the cut is not as sharp I expect. That's good, but I still use a metal file to clean up the edges, just in case. Then I move the motherboard forward. Now I got more space on the back, but not enough space for the GPU. To solve that, I use an extended riser from Lee & Lee. I roughly measured the space I need for the GPU in the AC units, but again something on the way. Then I need to do my second cut. I cut the bottom bandings and the extra metal on the riser. Again, for safety purposes, clean the cuts is a must here. After cutting, I put some of my old PC component inside the case, then I measure the spots each one on the case. After making sure everything is fit, then I secure the motherboard tray by using a rivet. Install the rivets is one of the easiest tasks on this build. Drilling the hole, put the rivets in, snap the ends using the Rivet Gun. Easy. Then I clean up the little metals that generate from the cutting and drilling because I need to install the soundproofing material. First, I use this sound deadening material for car. I forget the brand is. I will put all the stuff I use on the video descriptions. In case you're crazy enough like me and you want to build something like this too. This thing, just like a tape, is very easy to install. I cut the size, stick that on the case. It is fine to only cover 50% of the surface.
but I use that to cover most of the interior. I've even put 3 layers on the back panel. The second product I use for soundproof, I use this black colored gap filler from Great Stuff. There are several good purposes for using these products. One, because I cut out a lot of material out of the case. It can help the construction more solid. 2, it can hold a lot of weight from the AC. Without this, all the weight will be land on the bending of the case. Of course, I don't want to do that. 3rd, because it is a foam-based material, it can absorb a lot of sound after cutting it. Nice fit. Next, mounting the radiator, I use a paper to chase the edge and the mounting hole. Stick that on the panel, drill the holes. Because the motherboard tray is slightly inward, it can't sit flush on the panel, so I use a fan as a spacer. These two 140mm fans are totally overkill for this. Now I lose count for the cuts. I just do my next cut, cutting out the metal between the CPU radiator and the AC radiator. Then I realize it needs some clearance for the cold air coming out. Then I remove the material on the spot I need to cut. Then more cuts on the top of the case. This cut is for me because I need that cold air from the ACs too. To do that, I use a rotary tool to cut through the middle of each line. Then my jigsaw can get into it. I also use the rotary tool to cut down some of the material on the bending line. That hopefully will make the bending easier later. At this point, I start to manage the rotating tool. So I use that to cut the IOs for the GPU. Next, I cut a hole big enough for the AC power cords, so I could put the AC inside to measure the size for cutting the back panel. The same cutting method applies to the back panel. Use the rotary tool to cut a hole. Finish that job with my jigsaw. I will bend the top part of the back panel. I need that to support the AC even more. I also need that to cover a tiny part of the cold air vent that is not inside the case. Next, I'm bending the back panel and the top of the case. It is so hard to bend those, even though I cut some of the material out. Next, I do the final cuts for the motherboard I/O. I use the Corsair deadening tape to cover the hole that I don't need. You may wonder why there are two same size holes right here, because that was an accident. I cut the material to the size, then tape it. I think it looks not bad right now. I also covered those with the hole filler inside as well. The filler is great to absorb sounds. I also use the acoustic foam too, to reduce the sound bouncing inside the case. That's just my theory. Maybe I'm wrong here. Let me know your thought. The build's almost done at this point. I put the legs and dust filter back on. It's time for RGB. I swapped the RAM with this Trident Neo 64GB kit. I know G.SKILL make a good memory, but I didn't like this heatsink. I didn't get cut by the cuts I made on the case, but I did get cut by these heatsinks. I'm gonna put 2 more 140mm RGB fan from Corsair on this radiator. I know it's totally unnecessary, but just for aesthetics, I'm going for it. There's no reason to buy a new or old GPU at this point because we know the 3000 series is coming at the corner. I just used the old 1080 from EVGA. I test everything is working correctly. I do my final cleaning before putting it up. With all the material I put inside the case, now the computer is super heavy. I cannot install that by myself. Actually, my wife was helping me to do that, but sorry I skipped that part because she doesn't want to be on camera. Okay, to make the back panel, now it's side panel prettier, I purchased more cool stickers for that. It looks not bad. All done. It's time to sit back and admire the work I done. Before jumping to the conclusion, I want to share some number for you. What you hear right now is the sounds from before. I set the temperature to 60 degrees and the fan speed low. I also run a stress test on either 64. About 20 minutes, the highest core temperature reached 98 degrees. Oh, forget to mention the spec. The CPU I use is Intel 5820K. I overclocked that to 4.4 GHz. This is the sound after. And the same overclock setting apply here. The highest temperature is 71 degrees. More impressively, the idle only 20 degrees.
今天终于把这个 project 给完成了，希望你可以喜欢。如果你喜欢的话，记得给我点个赞或者给我加关注。如果你想看更多这样的视频，在之前的视频里，曾经我有提到过，在这一个 project 里面有几个 goal， 我是想给 complete 的。第一个，我是想把我的冷气变得更加的安静。现在我是把它设置为最大的风速，还有最低的温度。现在比本来实在是安静的太多了。因为我用了很多不一样的 material， 我用了一些construction based 的 hole filler， 我放一个图在上面，然后我用了一些那个 car 的sound damping material， 那个是直接贴在我的 case 上面的，那个可以把你的金属变得更加的厚实，那个声音不那么容易的穿过那个金属物。然后最后我是用了一些 Acoustic foam， 把我的 case 里面也包了一圈，这样子可以有效的阻挡那些声音的那个回响，不容易反弹和做的变得更大的声音。第二个，我是想把我的 PC 的温度给降低。很明显，你放了一台冷气在你的 PC 里面。温度不降的话就有鬼了。它 idle 的时候的温度大概是在20摄氏度，它 fully low 我用 either 64 to run 那个 benchmark stress test， 最高的温度是在70度这样子。第三个，我是想有更多的 desk space， 好像你现在看到的，我这桌面是干干净净的，什么东西都没有，漂漂亮亮的。还有我放了一个很大的那个 fog lamp 在我的桌面上。为什么我要把一个 fog lamp 搬到桌子上面呢？因为我觉得它的 leg 还挺酷的，放在桌面上还挺有型的。然后它那个 shape 呢，我可以把那个 monitor 装在上面，那个就是我下一个 project。如果你想看的话，记得 subscribe to my channel。第四个，我是想把我的 PC 变得更加的酷。本来把 PC 装到 Windows 上面已经很酷了，还加上 RGB， 还有 Windows PC 本来就应该装到 Windows 上面。So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Leo. Here's How to IT. I'll see you on the next project, or you see me on my next project. Bye bye.